After an unbelievable start to the season for Victor Wembanyama, he has since played 2 games in a row where he was pretty awful, all things considered. He had a 19-point game on 50% true shooting with 5 turnovers versus the Lakers, and an even worse 9 points and 6 turnovers on an abysmal 32% true shooting versus the Suns. What exactly was different about these games that he went from looking like the best in the world to a deer in headlights? And is it possible to replicate this defensive approach of LA and Phoenix, 2 overall middle-of-the-pack defenses, and create a league-wide strategy to shut down the alien in San Antonio? All of that and more in today's Film Room Friday on Saturday. Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel, drop a like, hype the video as well. It's the best way to make the video do better in the YouTube algorithm, but let's just get right into this one. First of all, I actually kind of feel the need to apologize to Wemby for jinxing him. Against Miami before the Phoenix and LA games, he had a really bad shooting night, but still got 27 points, 18 rebounds, and 5 blocks. I titled a video over on Little Rusty, "What a Bad Wemby Game Looks Like." Well, as it turns out, there's a lot worse than bad, I guess. In my mind, the sign of a truly transcendent and well-realized talent is that their bad games still look super impressive for just about any other player. This is provably not the case for Wemby at this point based on these 2 performances, but as much as I will have to be negative at points in this video, I do think there are still plenty of positives to take away with these games, weirdly enough. So what is this big strategy that shook Wemby so much? Well, it's actually not all that new of one by any means. The move is to put a strong wing on Wemby on the perimeter with a big ready-to-play help defense around the rim. This is a strategy that we've seen used against Nikola Jokic last year in the playoffs versus OKC. Oftentimes it was Caruso or J-Dub taking the initial matchup with Chet and Hartenstein lingering around the rim, usually helping off of a non-shooter. This method largely worked, even in spite of the fact that Jokic is super strong. In the case of Wemby, he isn't super strong, like stronger than he was in his first 2 years, no doubt, but not strong enough that he can easily power through these wings. Versus Phoenix, it was Royce O'Neal and Ryan Dunn, although they also did a double big lineup a few times with Oso and Nick Richards. And versus LA, it was Rui, Vando, occasionally Connect, LaRavia, and Smart. Even Luka Doncic a few times just because he's a bigger body. Another key piece of context is these games were played without Dylan Harper for the most part. He played 11 minutes versus Phoenix, but then got hurt, missed the rest of that game, missed the LA game. The playmaking for San Antonio was notably weaker than it was in Wemby's first couple of games, and it was very noticeably felt in their offensive approach. As a result, most of the possessions that Wemby did get were face-ups in the post, and that made doubling and even triple teaming him super easy. Wemby gets this ball back from Harper, immediately faces up but gets double teamed by Booker. Keldon cuts down the middle, bringing Gillespie down, but he is able to recover because of the tough pass Wemby made, and that results in a Castle catch-and-shoot 3. As you can see there, on top of the help coming from a big, in general, the team's defense was just zeroed in on helping on Wemby whenever possible. Like, it was very clearly basically their only focus. Look at LA's defenders here. All of their eyes are on Victor. Every single one of them. Luka's looking at Victor. Obviously, his initial matchup is Rui has his head turned. I believe that's Marcus Smart who's looking at him. Jackson Hayes is lingering. And when you have all these non-shooters, Lindy Waters is kind of a shooter, but you have Sohan on the baseline. Keldon Johnson hasn't shot well from 3 in years. Like, there is more than enough incentive to just simply help off of this. So Wemby sees this and he figures really the only way that he is going to get a shot off is in the middle, because if he drives, there's just going to be so many people swatting at the ball to get it from him. Another thing worth noting is there was a lot of off-ball double teams, or really just showing a lot on Wemby as a help defender, making it more difficult to get a pass into him. You can only get away with this so much dependent on personnel, but if there is any non-shooter on the floor at all, it becomes a lot easier to exploit. Right here, Booker is showing on the Wemby post-up, even putting a hand on him, making an entry pass damn near impossible. As a result, Barnes throws it to Castle, who does hit this deep 3, but that is a shot that the defense will live with every single time. I mean, Booker would rather put hands on Wemby than play defense on Castle there, especially for such a deep three-pointer. It also doesn't entirely not work when the player helped off of is a good shooter if there is enough time to rotate over if a pass were to happen. Watch Grayson Allen here in the corner. He is going to help off of Vassell because they're on the weak side. The ball is quite a bit away. Here he is touching Wemby off of the ball again, and there's really just no hope of any kind of action, any kind of getting the ball to him if they're going to do that, and the Spurs are going to do nothing to punish it. Like this opening right here, Vassell is so open, but it would require a cross-court skip pass in this instance, and that's enough time for Allen to recover and potentially even get in that passing lane. Bringing this back to defenders literally just putting their hands on Wemby, it wasn't just that possession with Booker. This issue was super prevalent in both of these games, and it's absolutely a foul at the rate that it's happening. Don't get me wrong, hand checking is still very much alive in the NBA today, and it's actually really weird and indicative of how little boomers watch the modern game that they think that this has just been entirely eradicated from the sport. It absolutely hasn't. It's still very prevalent. So I don't expect you to call it every time a player touches Wemby. But normally you cannot have two hands on the guy you're defending this much. Look at how much Booker is holding on to Wemby here. Just so much contact the entire time. It's kind of something that you get away with, especially if you're a smaller defender on a bigger guy. Look at Goodwin on this possession this time around. Like, he's wrapping his arms around Wemby. He's grabbing his hand. He is doing everything in his power. And I get it, like it's a desperation move out of a smaller guy, and Wemby could definitely do a lot to push back against such a thing, but there's also not a ton he can do. Here, Dalton Connect is draped all over him, gives him a couple of different hits, including like basically smacking him. Laravia also does some contact on the help, and he does foul him on the shot, but there were like 3 fouls before that. The thing is, this is a double standard that tends to apply to just completely physical anomalies like Wemby, or really just for any super dominant and especially physical player. The example that I cited with Caruso guarding Jokic earlier, a lot of Nuggets fans rightfully complained about just how much contact Caruso got away with against Jokic, but that's also kind of how it has always worked in this sport. Unfortunately or not. Someone like Shaq arguably got fouled considerably more than he ever got the call. Giannis is definitely that way. Even as he regularly is towards the top of the league and fouls drawn, he's getting serious contact on damn near every possession, and only some of those are resulting in a foul call. There is such thing as a superstar whistle, but I find that tends to apply to guards more than anything else. That's why the best foul grifters in league history are almost exclusively guards, because they get a lot more benefit of the doubt whenever they are initiating the contact. Embiid is really the only exception to that. When you are super strong and you have just a ton of outlandish physical gifts like Shaq, Giannis, or Wemby, more contact that goes uncalled is just kind of a part of that experience. It would be nice if fouls were called by the same standard for every player regardless of what their physical capabilities are, but they're not. So this is something that Wemby is just going to have to simply adjust to. I do think something that he could do to negate this a little bit is literally just keeping his hands up even if he's off of the ball. Like, a lot of the time this contact is preventing him from doing anything, like his arms are damn near being pinned down. But that's enough excuses made. Let's talk about Wemby's turnovers, because dealing with this kind of defensive pressure properly is the most important thing you can learn as a budding superstar offensive player. First of all, I do want to mention a good amount of these are offensive fouls more so than bad passes or fumbled handle. Watch Devin Booker here. The way Phoenix was aggressively attacking the ball here, there's going to be plays like this where they're going for the ball and Victor's just freakishly long arms end up sticking out and they just run right into it. Like, this is really Booker's fault for running into Wemby's hand, but more often than not, the defense is going to get the foul in their favor on plays like that. Here is another offensive foul from Wemby, and he has this unique issue that, there's other players who have been tall enough to have this problem, but when he goes to lower his shoulder and bump a defender with it, his shoulder, even when he crouches down, is so damn high up that he ends up hitting Marcus in the face instead of in the chest. Like, if this lowered shoulder bumped the guy in the chest, there would not have been a foul, but because it hit his chin, easy for him to sell that contact, because Lord knows Marcus Smart is going to sell the contact. Kind of just going to walk into these offensive fouls if there's so many aggressive defenders chasing you all the time. But of course, there were also your traditional turnovers mixed in there as well. Here we see that Wemby still isn't great at handling contact while he's dribbling the ball. He takes this hit from Mark Williams and he just kind of fumbles it out of bounds. The points where his handle has looked the weakest has been whenever he is just getting more physicality. This time around, there's a rough entry pass here from Castle, so that's kind of the reason why this goes the way that it does. But even as he recovers the ball, I just wish Victor would start keeping the ball higher, because it makes it really easy for Goodwin to rip it from him there. Like, if you're 7'7" and you bring the ball 2 feet from the ground, you are bailing out the defense. In general, I still find Wemby's handle to be quite shaky. The more that he does it, the more it ends up resulting in a turnover. Not turning the ball over was a huge part of his early success that made it seem like he had turned a new leaf, but that was primarily due to him simply dribbling less. With the lack of playmaking around him, minus Harper for those 11 minutes, he just has to create more for himself, resulting in more dribbling and more turnovers. In his first 5 games, he averaged 1.8 turnovers. In these 2, he averaged 5.5. Another issue I found was the Spurs just seemed to accept that Wemby was locked up at a certain point, and they just completely kept him out of the action, like way too much standing in the corner for him. It reminded me a lot of his rookie year. As a result, when he got the lesser touches, when he did get the ball, he was a little hasty with his decision making, a good handful of rush shots where he just could have made it if he was just a smidge more composed. He also didn't connect on a lot of his screens in either game, and that's something that just can't be happening. It gives the defense quite a break. It makes his rolls to the rim far less effective. There is actually one massive positive to take away from all of this. As effective as this strategy was at slowing down Wemby, it also resulted in a ton of good offense for his teammates that, they just simply didn't capitalize on, either due to poor shooting or poor playmaking. See, there's a little term that I like to bring up to a nauseating degree called gravity. The best offensive players in the history of the NBA possess said gravity, and the best offenses built around those players leverage that gravity into good offense. You just have to be aware of it and have the proper personnel to execute. In general, the Spurs have good playmaking and shooting, but even a few non-spacers or a few guys with tunnel vision is enough to muck things up. So, the Spurs by no means utilized Wemby's gravity to its fullest potential in these games, hence why they didn't end up winning and the defense didn't have to pay for this strategy. However, said potential of that gravity's usage was pretty clearly displayed, and if it can be leveraged properly, it will both make the offense better for Wemby's teammates, but also make it better for Wemby as well, as teams will be less inclined to double and triple team him all the time if it's constantly resulting in open shooters. When a defense is faced by a transcendent offensive talent on this scale, they tend to overplay their hand defensively and make a ton of mistakes. Some obvious, some not so much. But ultimately, the sign of a great offensive player is how much they make a defense make mistakes. Let's look at some examples here. Here, Wemby has deep post position on Royce O'Neal, so Mark Williams is going to help out of the corner on Harrison Barnes. Good shooter wide open, just does not go in. Here, Mark is lingering in the paint due to Wemby rolling near the rim, and he leaves Julian Champagnie wide open in the corner. Another really clean look that just does not go in. Here, Wemby drives, bumps Oso off of him, so Grayson Allen has to help, and he leaves McLaughlin wide open in the corner. Again, a really clean look that is not capitalized on. Here, Wemby is rolling to the rim, which causes O'Neal to have to help over here under the rim. And that leaves Champagnie wide open. McLaughlin makes the skip pass to the corner, and then he makes the swing pass to Castle. Good look. Not a great shooter. Does not go in. Wemby this time trapped in the corner again, but both O'Neal and Williams have their eyes locked on him. This results in Champagnie being left wide open in the corner. Once again, Wemby gets trapped in this corner, but even in a position where there's like nothing he can do, all three of Phoenix's defenders away from this double still have their eyes on that action. Mark Williams is rotated all the way out to here, leaving Champagnie wide open. Harrison Barnes is open, and Royce O'Neal can split and decide between who of these guys he wants to defend, but either way, it's going to result in an open look. Wemby obviously not getting the assist or the hockey assist even here, but the swing around the perimeter finds the open man. Not every example of gravity is super obvious. Not every time is it like, oh, this guy being very good at scoring is why the defense fucked up right there. But this possession is broken from the moment that this double team happens. A lot of those possessions were broken. They just simply did not hit the three to punish the defense. This time against the Lakers, Wemby is going to drive on Luka. DeAndre Ayton is going to help in the mid-range around the free throw line, and then Harrison Barnes is left wide open, and he is nice enough to hit the three this time. This play right here reminds me of Steph. Typically speaking, it's bad practice to just stand there when you don't have the ball, especially very far out like this. However, Wemby has DeAndre Ayton on him, so if he sticks out here and Ayton sticks out here, there is no rim protection, which results in a 4v4 play, and that's pretty hard for the defense to stop when there's nowhere around the basket, so Castle ends up drawing the foul here. Getting the defense into a 4v4 when it's literally a point guard in Steph's case is already a really huge advantage for the offense, but when it's literally a center who is being pulled all the way out from the paint, that is immensely valuable. Like, there was just no help at all around the rim for Castle right there, so Marcus has to foul him. Like, that is beautiful offense. And all of it because Victor Wembanyama terrifies the defense. Overall, I still managed to walk away thinking no less of Wemby based on these games, because I think a few adjustments from the Spurs and primarily Harper and Fox being back should fix a lot of these issues. But for when Wemby isn't in the most ideal set of circumstances, he still should develop some semblance of a counter to this kind of defensive approach. So what might those counters be? Well, frankly, I think he mostly did what the counter should be, which is just stepping into these mid-ranges. He escapes the double team right there, and that's a wide open shot. He just does not hit it. And he was not hitting these mid-range shots in general. This one ends up going in over Rui. And again, just pay attention to how every fucking defender is looking at Wemby here. But he's able to elevate, and considering that release point, that's a really good shot. It's really key that he makes that a regular part of his arsenal. Another one of the big issues that made double teaming Wemby so successful is that when he was posting up, he was getting really high in the post. He was also like damn near at the 3-point line half of the times on those possessions. So getting deep post position would be a very good way to counter that. And this play here on the fast break with Grayson Allen on him is damn near the only time that he did that the entire game. But a quick entry pass from Keldon, and a key thing, he does not put the ball down so a smaller defender can rip it away from him. Another good counter is just simply hitting threes, but as you can tell from Devin Booker's reaction there, he's pretty willing to give him that shot. The thing is, like, when you have someone who is this good at scoring inside the paint, even if they're a pretty good shooter, you're gonna choose to let them shoot as opposed to the alternative if the alternative does feel that inevitable. Like, what happens if Devin Booker jumps there? Probably going to get scored on for sure, versus Wemby was not hitting his threes in this game, nor did he hit them versus the Lakers, so might as well just let him shoot it. Overall, I don't think these stinkers from Wemby are a sign of him secretly not getting all that much better, more so a blip, a growing pain. I'm just not put off by this at all, and I imagine with Fox's return the night that this video is going up, he will play considerably better. Were the best player in the league conversations a bit premature? Sure, but I think everyone knew that even as they were saying it. I was happy to emphasize of like, this is super early, probably not, but the gut does say best in the world based on these games. But, you know, I'm not actually out on that reality by the time the season ends being over. Like, that very much could be what is the case, but, you know, it's not all going to go perfectly. And I personally feel that, like, would have been a lot better if he just simply stunk in these games. It's more like the defense never had to change their strategy because his teammates kind of stunk in these games. And for what it's worth, I do think he has this factor just because of how fucking good his defense is, that like, even if he is putting up a stinker on the offensive end, even if he is just ass on that end, he still ends up being a massive game changer. He still had just a slightly negative plus minus in both of these games, because even though the Spurs weren't scoring, the Suns and the Lakers weren't really scoring when he was on the floor either. And again, I really think that gravity factor, the way that that was able to be leveraged, even ineffectively, still resulting in so many good shots, that is a sign of things to come with him, and it's going to break defenses for a really, really long time. You know, knock on wood, assuming Wemby has the help. But yeah, I don't know if that's how you shut down Wemby, but it certainly slowed him down, and I do think that that will change as the Spurs learn to adjust, but we will have to see. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to Rudy for editing it, and goodbye.